Logan, big news out of late last week, or what was that, this weekend? But Tennessee officially parted ways with Chaz Coleman, and he is no longer on the team. Tennessee's NIL collective will not be responsible for paying him all of his, $2-3 million, whatever it was. He already got some of it, but they backloaded it, trying to get him motivated, according to different reports, to get back on campus. But overall, Chaz Coleman has been medically disqualified or dismissed. I can't remember which one it was, but for medical reasons, he will no longer be playing for the University of Tennessee. He will, however, remain on scholarship, according to multiple reports. I think On3 probably had that first. But overall, this saga is over, and it's getting taken care of. Another step maybe of growth for Josh Heupel as a coach, learning from the Boo Carter situation, just went ahead and cut ties here. If you've been following Austin Price, listening to him on any of the outlets he speaks on, if you're on the VolQuest threads, things like that, he's been saying for a while that this was done and that Chaz Coleman would not play this fall. But it's over and done with. So we'll start with that. I mean, it's tough. You knew you had a shot at bringing in Coleman, so you let guys like Elijah Herring walk, and
sure,
you now do not have maybe that star power at your edge position / Leo position, which you look back at some of the great defenses that there have been over the last couple years. They always have a staple at that defensive end position. I think of how good that Michigan defense was. They had Aiden Hutchinson there. Think about all the great Ohio State defenses that there's been. Always a good edge rusher. There's a lot. If you play college football, nothing sets the tone for the video game. Nothing sets the tone better than having a speed rusher on your defensive line to get past the offensive line and get a tackle or get a sack in the backfield. So all that to say, it's a big blow because you thought you had this guy and you don't. So let's talk immediate this season. Logan, is this something that concerns you as you are already having so many moving pieces with the defense, or are you more thankful that this is done and over with now and you can just focus on moving forward?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's definitely concerning, right? Just from the standpoint of, I mean, he was one of your big fish.
Yeah,
Really, probably your biggest fish out of the portal.
he was. He was top 10 player. Top 10 player.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Even more so, though, it was at a position of need.
Mm-hmm.
You let Elijah Herring walk. We'll be honest, and we're not going to sit here and frame it like we let Jordan Ross walk. Like he was out. Like he didn't want to be here. I don't think his mom wanted him here. That's just what some of the guys on the VolQuest, Austin Price, and some of them had basically said, is that he really didn't want to be here, so it didn't really matter what Tennessee wanted to do anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was more of a money thing or what it was. I'm sure that was part of it. But so, you lost your two, I guess, your top three edge guys with those two guys transferring out and Josh Joseph's heading to the draft.
Yeah.
Christian Gass was a true freshman last year, but you really hadn't heard much from him.
Right.
Coming back as a redshirt, I'm assuming a redshirt freshman. I'm assuming they gave him a red shirt. You really hadn't heard much from him this spring either, so it doesn't really look like he's going to be a factor. So that means your edge players are Jordan Norman and Jordan Norman. That is it.
Yeah.
So, and he's Tulane?
Yeah, he came from Tulane.
Yeah, Tulane. So, I mean, it just kind of puts the pressure on him. He's got to have a big year. And then how creative do you get? Like, Jim Knowles at Ohio State specifically, obviously the talent was crazy there anyways, but like he adjusted his defense. They didn't really use a lot of Leos.
Right.
They played bigger defensive ends. At least that national championship year. So, like, do they do something like that? Do they have Jordan Norman, and then do they put like a Weathersby out at end? Do they put let's see, Hobbs will be an inside guy. Robinson will be an inside guy. Who else? But you've got your three freshmen. You've got great podcast. I'm just blanking all. JJ Finch. You got him on as a true freshman. They think maybe he'll contribute. You got a couple other true freshmen. Are you using those guys? And then, or do you do what Alec is praying to the good Lord they do and put a Jaden Perlotti out there on the edge? They put a, Braden Rouse on the edge. Like, do they put some of those young, speedy linebackers out on the edge and kind of lift them? No, Braden Rouse.
Sorry.
It's Braden Rouse. I read a great article on him, by the way, with Austin Price or Mike Wilson. He gave back to his old youth football
That's cool.
thing. So that was really cool to. I'd recommend everybody go read that. Um, but yeah. So like, what do you do? How creative do you get? Do you do a little bit of both? Right, situational. You play those bigger ends, and then if you need to get into some rabbit package type stuff, do you put Perlotti, Rouse,
Yeah.
um, maybe Arion Carter? But I don't necessarily see
Not on
that
the
one. I think there's
edge.
other
No.
options. Yeah, I think there's other options.
I'd be more
Um,
inclined to put T-Lander on the edge than Arian Carter. I just would want Carter to be in the middle of the field.
well, I mean, but if you're doing an edge, you're gonna want speed. So that T Lander's kind of out of
True.
that equation.
That's true.
At that point, you might as well play a big defensive end.
Yeah.
But um, but it what it does do, unless you get creative too, because that's been the two questions: is what does the defensive line look like? But then the other question with this defense is there's a lot of questions, but one of the other big ones is how do you get all these linebackers on the field? It's by far
Correct.
your best room. Well,
Yeah.
now you get an opportunity to kind of get creative and maybe get more guys on the field. Because I mean, if you think about it, Amari Campbell, he's going to play second year of the defense.
Hmm.
Aaron Carter, he's going to play.
Yeah.
Edwin Spillman, he's good. He's going to play. I'm in the minority. I love Jeremiah Tielander's game. I fully understand the deficiencies there, the lateral quickness. It like I think he's a situational backer. I'm not saying he's a 3 down backer. I
Right.
think in rundowns, I think he is not afraid to stick his nose in there and hit
One hundred
somebody.
percent.
Like I think there's a role for him.
I think that also Knowles is going to play him. He's a
I think
coach's
you I
kid.
think
I think he and
yeah,
Knowles are going to be breathing the same. Like they're going to be on such the same wavelength and things like that. That I think Knowles is going to be hard pressed to not play him because he's going to have such a level of trust in him. Because
I agree.
I would not be shocked if you were to ask Knowles like, hey, who out of your linebacker room, who gets the defense the best? If I would assume first it's not Arion Carter who just transferred in
Amari
from
Campbell.
Amari Campbell and then T-Lander.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean I agree with that. And I mean he was begging. That's what a lot of the Volcos guys said is that during bowl prep when Knowles got here and wasn't coaching, he was just observing Carter. I'm sure Carter was too, but T-Lander was begging
Yeah.
for the installs for the new defense. And it they've talked about how, he's improved his lateral quick. Owens has been great
Yeah.
for T-Lander. He's gotten faster. Now, is he going to be walking down slot receivers? No, he's not going to
No.
be doing that. But if he's improved his step by a little bit and he makes up for let's just a quarter of the plays he missed last year just due to lack of speed, I think that's a
Right.
big improvement. And
I agree.
I think like I said, I think there's a role for him there. So all that to say, like it stinks. Like you don't it's and Chaz Coleman really wasn't even a proven talent.
No,
Like it
he
wasn't like he
wasn't.
just put up massive numbers last year. I mean, they were okay for limited snaps, but you were projecting with him. And
Right.
so you're hoping that you get creative and use a lot of guys to cover up what you were losing with the production you thought you were going to get from Chaz.
Right. And who knows? He could have gotten hurt, things like that. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I do think that I'm very interested to see where Prolati goes. If Prolati has a similar offseason to maybe what it sounds like a lot of guys are having as far as weight and speed being put on, he was listed at 210 last year and Jordan Norman's at 250 essentially. I'm not saying
Yeah.
Pilates putting on 40 pounds of muscle, but I would not be shocked if Pilates able to put on 15-ish pounds. I mean, that is a
I think 230.
if he can hit 225, 230 with his speed off the edge. Like, do I think he's going to be this speed rusher type of defensive end? No, but I think when you're talking about how do you get the guys like Rouse, Perlotti, White, who's the other linebacker they brought in this year? You've had multiple years of two linebackers signed, two top five linebackers signed coming in. Like you have the talent there, and Knowles likes to get creative, and putting one of your linebackers with a hand in the ground there, and then being able to drop him and disguise dropping eight in that kind of a coverage when you need to. I mean, for a guy like Knowles that has the defense like he does, it was very Gary Patterson like, where it is like here's the base, and then we are going to run all these different variations to confuse. Like the offense really never knows what they're looking at. In some ways, you're almost thankful if you're Knowles because it's like, all right, I am now forced to get as creative as possible to solve the problems of the offense we have coming up the next week. And so just then the question becomes, can your linebacker room handle being both one of those linebackers because it's a base 4-2-5 So being one of those two linebackers, but also being someone with their hand in the ground, potentially off on the edge, which defensive ends aren't a hand in the ground as much as they used to be. So I don't think that that'll be that big of a shift. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the linebacker room looks like. So shifting from that to maybe big picture, and I'll start with my answer on this because I've seen some discourse around it. But Logan, we are less than 15 months removed from Nico up and leaving at the end of spring practice. We are, last October, I guess, is when the Boo Carter stuff was officially done and he wasn't doing anything. So, 8 months from that. Sorry, a bug just flew in my mouth. That's fun. Great podcasting. And now this. Is there a culture issue with... The question is there a culture issue within Tennessee? I've already seen Ohio State sites hitting this, which I'm like, whatever. Y'all are scrapping at straws for DGG. My confidence is growing in that every day, unfortunately, which means I'm going to be disappointed. I've seen Alabama sites writing about it, and I think they're more fan sites. They're not like a VolQuest or a 247 type thing. I've seen A to Z Sports writing about it, which, whatever.
Don't get me started on them.
And so it's all these things saying like there's a culture issue within Tennessee. And so I wanted to talk about it, one, because I wanted to get our thoughts out there because I agree with both of our thoughts, but two, because it does need to be talked about. So, is there a problem within Tennessee? That's the question. To me, no. Look at all three situations. You have Nico, who Big Nick, his dad, was pushing for more money. Nico is not meeting requirements financially. All this stuff. From that whole situation, that was all financially driven, and you knew an issue could potentially pop up there, and it did. It bit you, and they left in the spring window, and you got lucky with Joey Aguilar. But that whole situation, that is financially motivated. Next, Boo Carter. Everyone knew that kid was going to be a basket case of some sort. When his mom, nothing was better than getting on Twitter and seeing what was her Facebook thing. Was it Mama?
I don't know.
I think
Mama
it was
Boo or something
Mama
like
Boo
that.
6 or something like that. What?
Wow.
Go see what Mama Boo 6 posted today. When you've got a player's mom out here putting her son's health records on social media, trying to get more money or whatever it may be, like that was just a whole thing in of itself. And then
He also went to 4 high schools in 4 years.
4 high schools in 4 years, and now this.
Something like that.
You have a player that you had Penn State coaches, Penn State players, all recruiting this guy, former Penn State coaches, like guys that were with him for the last 15 months before he got here, trying to get him to come to Tennessee. If you're Josh Heupel, yeah, you're going to take – it's not just, all right, Jim Knowles said to bring him in. You're talking about all the coaches that he brought with him, the 3 players that were coming. Like Xavier Gillum was publicly recruiting him, and they shared a room. Not like living together, but they were both in the defensive line room. They probably got split up in tackles and ends, but still, they did a lot of playing together and training together. If there was someone that was going to know if something was off with Chaz Coleman, Xavier Gillum is probably going to be one of the best options there. And so, but then the reports came out about a month ago that players were saying that he wasn't the same after his concussion. And so it's like, all right, cool. We're not going to make assumptions. I don't want to do anything like that. But we've seen publicly what can happen when CTE gets involved. Look at Antonio Brown and how crazy he got. OBJ in some facets has had some different things there. So, that you can look and see when a player has multiple concussions, how it can affect their brain. And that I am not saying that is what all of this is, but when you have players reportedly saying that he was significantly different after his concussion, man, there's stuff there. And so I do think that there is maybe some better evaluation that needs to happen. But like it's tough in the moment with all three of these incidences. There we go. Are isolated and 3 completely separate things. Chaz Coleman didn't come in, try to get a bag and leave like Nico and Boo did. Nico, you'll never convince me that if his dad wasn't involved, that that situation would still be the same.
Sure.
Like, I think that was driven by a parent. Boo Carter was just crazy. Disappeared for a month, came back, and that's, I think, out of the three, probably the one where Heupel probably messed up the most and should have just cut him at the beginning of the season. But at the same time, if he doesn't cut him, they mend their relationships, and Boo Carter is a staple. He's like this incredible star for you in the defense at that position, at the star position. He's, got 3 punt returns for a touchdown. It's like, oh man, so glad Heupel kept him. That, like, that hindsight's 2020 there. You wanted to keep Boo if you could. But looking back, it's like, well, probably should have just let him go at that point. So all three of those situations are wildly different, and I don't know that you can do much to predict them happening. Boo is probably the most obvious one, but with Nico and Chaz, I think those are two situations where you're like, all right, the risk is there, but the risk is worth the reward, and what the possible reward is. But it's a tough look when in 18 months, 19 months, you have these three situations all stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, I think they're just. I mean, every school has guys leave over stuff. Like the reason the Nico one was so high profile is because he was the guy that forgot the first big NIL like paycheck, and they basically pulled off a trade, and then he got nasty on Twitter with his dad and stuff. So like that was what it was. The Boo Carter thing, that was really in a vacuum. Like that didn't get national and things like that. Like that happens at other places too. And like you said, he probably should have cut ties at the beginning, but you try not to, and you don't just, So this one has no feel like the other two did. I mean, I think if this was a real, if this was like a kid problem, I don't think Tennessee keeps him on scholarship for medical purposes, right?
That's a good point.
I don't think him or his family are willing to restructure his NIL deal. Tennessee went back after he missed all those spring practices and restructured his NIL deal, and him and his family agreed to it, to backload it. So like that don't really, those two specific things don't really scream to me that this is anything like the first two instances. So yeah, I mean, that's just, I mean, other fan bases talking like a culture problem is when you have like, I don't know, a dozen arrests in 18 months because of reckless driving. Like that's probably a culture-ish problem,
Yeah.
even though it doesn't really like, or maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's not a culture problem, but it's a problem, right? Not blowing up your team from the inside. Like 2005 was a culture problem at Tennessee.
Right.
The coach played favorites, picked the wrong quarterback, and half the team knew it. You went 5-7 when you were a top 5 preseason team. So, that's just people saying stuff and wanting it to be. But no, I think the way the team. I mean, it's not like you have a bunch of guys leaving over this and that and stuff. It's one guy here, one guy there. It's just happened that it's been in a short timeline.
Right.
So,
and this is part of the new era we live in, right? When money's in play, like it just is what it
that's
is.
part of the portal. Yeah, that's part of the portal too. Like sometimes you just not even miss on evals because it's like you said, like all these guys that worked with him, like they vouched for him. So the concussion probably did have some effect into it. And maybe he could be one of those guys that likes what football gets for him more than he likes actually playing football.
Yeah,
which that's not even a negative. That's just. There's no right or wrong in that situation. That's just how it is for him. So
yeah, and let's be honest. Not that I have ever personally been coached by Rodney Garner, but you better love football if you're going to be coached by Rodney Garner, because that man does not hold back. I've heard stories of different things at his time at Auburn, and it's humorous but also terrifying. But yeah, I don't see this being a culture issue. It doesn't seem like it's affecting anyone in the locker room. I think guys are more bummed than frustrated. Like I think as a whole, reading between the lines, what is being said, things like that. I think and actions as well. I think there's a general, man, we are sad for Chaz as a person and a player more than we are losing a defensive end. We're losing an edge piece, like things like that. So, when the school is willing to keep him on scholarship, I think that speaks a lot to the situation as a whole, of what's kind of going on here. So